It's such a great tune. Why not listen to it twice? I'm happy to be here hosting episode 663 of the RecPoker podcast. We're going to be talking to Brett Vader Poker Kimes in just a minute. First, I got to thank, of course, Peter Trulin for giving us that music that's so good we want to listen to it 2 or even 3 times each episode. And I'm your host, Jim Reid, Bluffsterini in the home game and at RecPoker Jim on socials. I have the best freaking job in the world, talking poker with my friends here every Monday night on the RecPoker podcast at 7:30 Eastern, live on YouTube. You can join us for free and win a prize just for showing up. We're going to be talking to Brett Kimes in just a minute. I am so excited to mention that we are brought to you by Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. They are the official sponsor of the RecPoker podcast. You can find out more about them at runaces.com. Most of what we do here is free, and all it takes to join our free learning community is an email address and a smile. And since we're a largely volunteer-based organization, we really depend on support from our sponsors like Running Aces and from our premium members who take part in our training materials and study opportunities for only $22 a month. So give us a try. You can get your first month of premium membership for only $5 at any time by using the code RecPoker at checkout. And of course, we love to support local food banks, so you can also get your first month of premium membership just by making a donation of any amount to a local food bank and sending us the receipt, and we'll send you a free month of premium membership as a way of saying thanks. Now, we're going to talk to our whole group of RECing Crew members here. They let me host the show on Mondays, but as you know, I'm only one man. It takes a gang, a crew to make the magic happen around here. We call our leadership panel the RECing Crew, and you can find out more about me and the rest of the RECing Crew at rec.poker/crew. Or if you were in Columbus, Minnesota, you could have met up with a whole bunch of us because we were there this weekend for RecPoker weekend at Running Aces. Let's run through our group here a little bit. We've got John Somsky, Joe Koulis, Rob Washam, Lorianne Persinger, Chris Jones, and of course our invisible producer, Rob Gardner. Some of you were there to share the fun with me this weekend. Personally, I had a great freaking weekend. Made 2 out of 4 final tables. Made a ton of dough on the cash tables. I think we raised $500 or $600 for a local food bank, as well as a bunch of non-perishable food item donations. And just had a freaking fantastic time hanging out with some of you and some other great RECing Crew members and RecPoker Premium members. Let me see. Chris Jones, you also had a really good weekend at the tables, I think, right? Why don't you tell us all about some of your successes?
Yeah, I added to my growing comps availability at the casino, so I can get a free burger next time I show up. And that, you know, I made 0 out of 4 final tables, so it was a really good run for me.
I bet that burger tasted really good though. And sweet, well worth it.
Sweet free burger that
What about you, John Somsky? It was great to see you in person. Yeah.
For me, it's the first time I played live since our RecPoker event last year. So, and I managed to make 1 of 5 final tables.
Amazing. Rob Gardner, our invisible producer, you had a hell of a weekend. I think you made a few final tables of your own, back to back, 2 in one day, made a bunch of money. Am I getting any of that right?
Yeah, and I should be celebrating it, but I still can't get the taste of Taylor out of my mouth. So,
oh God,
nothing.
Yeah, are we still doing phrasing? Yeah.
You know, there's nothing like being at a final table where, you know, it pays 8 spots. There's 9 at the table because of the bad beat jackpot. The pay jump is $900, and they're like, "We should all pay the bubble." Yes. And he gets to Taylor, and he stares me dead in the eyes and goes, "Nope, nope. I'm not paying the bubble."
Yeah, that sounds like Taylor. And
he's on the slow roll list.
He's definitely on the slow roll. Are you just getting there now, Rob? Yeah, he's definitely on the slow roll list. Slow roll list.
That's a very small list, by the way.
Did you? Yeah,
I did. Oh. Yeah, to him, he busted me.
Who busted you? Who busted you, Rob?
Yep. He snapped my shove off with Jack 10 suited free and won the flip. So added pain.
Yeah. So just in case,
it was a great weekend.
Okay.
Yes. Lorianne, you'll get to know Taylor soon, and then you will also add him to your Venom list, your villain list. That is kind of how it goes. I must say, one thing that Taylor did this weekend was really, really fun. I had no idea this was happening. So Taylor pulls me aside at one minute and says, "Hey, we're going to be. Why don't we take like a group photo of all the RECing Crew members on the break of this tournament?" And I'm like, "Oh, sounds great." He's like, "Hey, even better. Let's shoot a short clip." and we can like share it on social and stuff. Like, whatever you want, buddy, let's do it. So we get to the break, and we're all standing up there, and I'm waiting for him to like take the photo or whatever. And all of a sudden, John Barrows, the poker director at Running Aces and a friend of mine, walks over and he starts talking about, you know, everyone on the RECing Crew chipped in to get me a present for all the work I do behind the scenes to make Rec Poker great. And I had no idea it was coming or what it was that was coming my way. And then he pulled out, and I encourage our audience, if you're only listening to this on audio, you can go check out the YouTube channel. He pulled out this little beauty from one of our friends at PSR, Phil Razor. This is Phil Razor's primetime workout video from the Jane Fonda workout collection. So I got a copy of that. I also got a copy of Poker Strategies, Learn from Phil, who is 167th and 31st on 167,000th and 31st on Poker's all-time money list, and Poker Strategies Volume 2, First-Hand Bad Beat Stories from MSPT champion Phil Razor. So that was pretty cool. That made my weekend. I hope Phil's in the audience because that was freaking unbelievable. And hats off to Taylor, lifelong villain, but wow, what a great prize, what a great idea that was.
Special hats off to Taylor's wife, who is the talent behind the creation of those. She's a graphic designer by trade, and pulled those together. So, and they look awesome.
It's amazing, and they did a really good job. Honestly, it's just like taping this up around these old VHS tapes that you had kicking around, Chris. They pulled you in, is that right?
Yeah. Well, Taylor's too young, right? So he's like, he goes to text the old man and be like, "Do you happen to have any VHS tapes lying around?" And yeah, I do have a few. So the way they went.
Oh man, that was amazing. So I really enjoyed that, and a special shout out to Doug Dirt on Twitter and Blue Sky, who's a buddy of Phil's, who started this whole ridiculous Poker Strategies video set. So congratulations to everybody. That was so much fun. Oh God, I had such a great time at that weekend. If Dan Kennedy is listening, Dan, thanks again for a really fun time. One Hand in particular, you know the one I'm talking about. And yeah, and everyone that was there, I hope they had a great time. Raised a bunch of money for the food bank. Got to see all these cool folks again. I can't wait to do it again. Might do it in August, which apparently is a much better time to be in northern Minnesota than late January, early February. But yeah, looking forward to that. Yeah, we got a few millennials in the YouTube chat apparently asking about what the hell's a VHS. Yeah, exactly. You got to be an old guy like Chris and me with a little salt and the pepper to know what that's all about. Yeah. All right, Rob. Well, it was great. I got to hang out with Rob Gardner. Actually, we don't get to meet each other in real life very often, but that was really cool. And Rob, we got to talk about a bunch of rec poker stuff, but we also got to talk about Chase the Dream, which is your project that Brett is also a part of. Why don't you talk a little bit about that, and then we'll bring in Mr. Kimes himself and get this interview started. Rob, I think you're muted at the moment. You are going, which is we refer to as pulling a Somsky when it happens on
oh my gosh.
There it is. No, we got you. Get in here, Rob.
I'm here now. I'm so good at this. Fire that guy that didn't get the music right in the beginning. That's one thing. Yeah, so Chase the Dream started as a kind of little docuseries we did 3 years ago where we chronologued 3 poker players working towards their dream of going and playing at the World Series of Poker in the summer. It featured me, Cale Cleaton, High Hands, that many of you know, and a friend of mine named Paul Figlamini. And it did way better than I ever expected. It got over 30,000 views. People really kind of liked getting to see behind the curtain of what it's like for everyday people to kind of chase their poker dreams. And we've talked for a long time about trying to bring it back. And we weren't quite ready to maybe bring it back as like another docuseries yet. So we decided to start this podcast, and it's basically tracking 7 people, again, teachers and people that are retired, people that are in the workforce, basically trying to chase what their poker dream looks like. And so it's kind of a fun way for people to kind of see people that look and act and do the things they do, taking on ambitious goals and maybe kind of getting to hear the highs and lows of what that looks like.
That's awesome. And you guys you've put a couple episodes in the can already, and you record every Wednesday at 7:30. Is that right? Where can folks come in?
Yep.
Come
Yeah,
along
you
for
can
that?
go to watchchasethedream.com. We'll take you straight over to the YouTube channel. We do live episodes every Wednesday night, and we have a very, very special guest that's going to join the crew this Wednesday to talk shop with us and talk about dream chasing. Our very own Jim Reid here is going to join us. So if you like that buttery, smooth Canadian voice of his, come on out Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern and get a double dose this week.
Thanks, Rob. Oh, you always make me feel so awkward. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun. So let's welcome in our guest here, Brett Kimes. He's one of the panelists on the Chase the Dream podcast. Brett, thanks for taking some time to come on the RecPoker podcast tonight.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Nice to meet all of you.
Yeah. Now, first off, I want you to know that I send out a newsletter every Monday going over a bunch of stuff that's happening at RecPoker that week and mentioning who's going to be on the show. I was talking to my mom on the phone this afternoon, and she said, "Oh, I saw your newsletter this morning. The guest is so handsome this week." So I want you to know, I'm not sure if Mom's actually tuning in. She usually tunes in live on YouTube, but later after the show, maybe we could exchange contact information and I can put the two of you in touch.
Yeah, there you go. It's the hair. Don't let it fool you. It's the hair.
The hair helps a lot. I mean, and I should say that she also routinely says nice things about how handsome I am and how handsome Joe Coolis is. So I don't want you that don't let the head swell too much. She might have early onset vision issues, but yeah, I want hi Martha, I love you. So we want to talk. We usually set our guests up with a chance to kind of define themselves, so don't let me put you in a box. My first question to you, how do you kind of consider your own role in the poker world today? What's the number one thing that you think of when you think of your own role in the poker world today?
First and foremost, player. I mean, I've been playing since 2004. Took a little hiatus for a few years, but for the most part, the player, I would say first. Been following tournament circuits for a long time. Been at the World Series pretty much every year except for 1 year since 2004 during the summer. So definitely player first. Over the last 4 years, I want to say I've been editing for Faraz Chaka's training site, so editing all his training videos. And then, as you heard Rob mention it, obviously been a team member of Chase the Dream, which actually I'm most proud of, and I think really helps cement kind of my position in poker a little bit more than being a player or editing, I suppose.
Awesome. Now we've got a bunch of questions lined up for you. I want to start back in 2008. So you experienced something that a lot of folks never get a chance to. You were heads up for a WSOP bracelet. I mean, that's kind of like, that's the dream right there. We're going to get into some of the details, but like just from a top level, like what's that experience like? What are the memories about it that stick with you the most since then?
It was a really, really fun experience. At the time, though, there wasn't as many players as there are now. I think it was about 2,200 runners, 2,178, or I don't know, something like that. But nowadays, you get 20,000 plus type entries, so it definitely was different type player pool then. But I remember, the first couple of days I was playing well. I was kind of sticking to like the Dan Harrington, Harrington Hold'em type of poker. Those are the books I started with. So I was just playing tight, solid poker essentially, and just kind of running good, to be honest. But I was like second or third in chips when we went down to the final two tables. We had played so long that instead of making the final table for the next day, they brought back the final two tables. So in that last day, I mean, I just ran pure, just eights want to flip against ace jack. Next thing you know, I doubled up and I'm like, midway in chips. And then by the time we hit the final table, I was the chip leader. And then I just kind of never looked back, and I just kept my foot on the gas and just putting a lot of pressure on people. And didn't really know about ICM back then. There were no solvers, or anything like that. But I kind of had an idea in my head that, hey, these people are trying to ladder up and I just need to keep put the pressure on. And then, got heads up with Vitali Lunkin, who at the time was pretty known Russian pro, who actually the year after he beat me for this bracelet, he, I think, won the like 50K or the Players Championship or something like that the very next year. So really good player. But yeah, that's kind of my memory of everything.
That's amazing. Yeah. Now, if folks in the YouTube chat, one of the perks of showing up live for the broadcast is that you can ask your own questions. So if you're in the YouTube chat, feel free to type any questions that you have for Brett, and we'll make sure that we ask them. And also, I just want to remind our live audience to stick around till the end of the show. We'll be awarding a prize to someone in our food bank raffle. So that'll happen right after the internet. So do stick around. All right. So you made that second place finish for the bracelet. You took home almost $400,000.
Yeah.
What happens logistically when you win six figures like that? You go to the cage at the WSOP, you get like a cashier's check or something, and then you go to the bank and you're like, "Hi, here's like $389,000." And they roll out the red carpet. Like, what happens like that? Tell me.
No, they did direct deposit, but I'll tell you, when you open your bank account and you see a six-figure number in there, it is a pretty good feeling. But the first thing I did was pay my backer the half plus the makeup that I owed at the time. That was the very first thing I did. So I didn't really get all of that $387,000, but it was still nice. It looked really pretty in the bank account for a good couple of days. So
yeah, that's right.
Looking forward to having another one of those.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny. My biggest score ever was this summer in the WSOP. It's also the event I sold by far the most action for ever, which is one of those things where it's just like, glad I did it. Yeah, you're welcome, Joe. That was a lot of fun. Thank you, buddy. Now, I noticed that after that event, I was doing some research. It looks like you didn't play a lot of live poker after that for a few years. What happened?
Well, there was a couple of different things. First, I spent my money on a lot of dumb shit. I was like 25 and would love to have that time back again.
Sure.
I learned a tough lesson. And then my backer just kind of went broke as well, kind of simultaneously. Then online poker, Black Friday happened. Then it was like, okay, what do I do now? And I just decided to get a job and move back up here to Dallas. At the time, I was living in Austin and San Antonio area. And decided just to move back in with my parents and find a job, and did that, got married, had a kid. And I like took shots at the World Series, because I didn't want to ever miss a summer, but it was like 1 week, when I could take like PTO and leave work and go. And it was really just shot taking, like 2 tournaments, 3 tournaments a year kind of thing. So that's pretty much the hiatus, I call it, that I went on for about 8 years, I want to say.
And what were you doing with your time otherwise? Because that leaves quite a void when you're playing professionally. Like, that's a volume game. What'd you get up to?
Other than work, and dad life, I tried to do a lot of studying at the time. It was like Tournament Poker Edge. And then I was able to play cash games like once every 3 months or something like that. So I did Crush Live Poker for a little while, which is Bart Hansen's site, and things of that nature. So I tried to study up as much as I could and tried to stay involved in the game without actually playing as often, and just did the best I could with the study side of it. I played online like America's Card Room and some other places like that for a little while too. But again, we're talking, if I was lucky, I got to play maybe 1 tournament every 2 months online or something. So the volume by no means was there at that time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know from watching the first episodes of Chase the Dream that your poker career has had some ups and downs. You've had some battles kind of on the felt and off the felt. Can you just tell us a little bit about like where your poker journey has taken you and what you've had to overcome, kind of like I say, on the felt and off the felt? It's a very interesting story.
Yeah. Well, thanks. So where it's taken me, that's an interesting question. It didn't start, the comeback this time didn't start the way my initial career started out. I mean, I made deep runs in the main event. I finished second in some WPT events. I finished like 3rd and 4th in some World Series of Poker Circuit events. I was running good, and I've never really experienced starting out running bad. So I guess I was just due, right? Had to take those lumps and earn the rite of passage, if you will. So I've been going through a lot of that over the last couple of years. And then coupled with sometimes playing bad too, right? I mean, if you're running bad, you're also sometimes play bad, and it's just that combination that sometimes hits. But I mean, I didn't really have much of a bankroll even to start out with. I'd say I've basically been plus or minus about $2,000, $2,500 that I've made last over the last couple of years. And that's playing World Series events, getting some backing, selling some action, things of that nature. But I've been trying to hang on as much as I can until things just kind of start going in the right direction. There were a couple of years where I played pretty regularly, but I was playing tournaments only. I wasn't really playing much cash. And looking back, I kind of wish I would have taken the bankroll I had and played more cash and less tournaments, just because as we all know here, the variance in tournaments is so much higher. But I didn't really plan for that because I cut my teeth playing tournaments. I mean, I've always played some cash. I used to play 5-10 and 2-5 and things like that. But I consider myself a tournament player, and it's where I enjoy playing poker the most. I find it the most challenging. And obviously, when you do hit, you hit big. So that's kind of I think a little bit of the mistake I made in trying to grow my bankroll in that direction when I probably should have been playing more cash. But yeah, that's kind of where I got to this point, and then by luck, really just met Rob and the rest of the folks back when it was 100K team 100K poker, and really just gravitated towards them. And I really liked Rob a lot, and he and I got to talking, and then met some of the other crew, Craig and Jay, who live here, and Jay's become like my brother from another mother. I mean, he's been just one of my best friends ever since I've met him. So it's been a rough start to the journey, but I feel like I'm definitely on the right path right now. And I definitely credit that to the team that I met and the people around me more than myself. Yeah,
no, the people around you, the community you're a part of. A lot of our guests seem to resonate with that notion that it's we're not a bunch of lone wolves in this. The team matters a lot. Exactly. Lorianne, you had a couple questions sort of about the people around you. Why don't you jump in with those?
I did. Thanks, Jim. Hey, Brett, how you doing? Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
I'm fine, thanks. Thank you. And keeping up with who is Brett, I know you have a son that is really precious to you. Can you tell us how old he is and basically tell us about him and how you balance poker and life as a single dad?
So good question. So he's 8. He turned 8 in December, so just recently 8 years old. And I have him about, some years it's about 47%. This last year I have him about 55%. So just kind of rotates based on different holidays that we split and share. But yeah, he's literally my world. Everything I do now, I do for him. I'm trying to like reach my dream so that I can have more time with him right now. Just because when I have him for 50% of the time, roughly, I want to maximize that time. And if I can, spend all the time I can with him, because, I am on limited time with him. He's going to be 13, then, tomorrow when I wake up, kind of thing. And he's not going to want to hang out with daddy anymore. He's not going to want to sleep in the bed with me, and things like that, like he does now at 8. So I'm trying to just get as much time with him as I can. But he's like, I call him my mini me. My mom will send pictures every once in a while to me, and she goes, "Guess who this is?" And I actually have to stare at it for a while and try to figure out if it's him or me. I mean, the two of us look identical when we were kids. So it's even down to, like, I used to have white blonde hair. You can still see it's a little bit of blondish, dirty blonde, but I had to, his hair color. We both have the big cheeks, those baby faces and everything. And yeah, he is my world. I do everything I do is for him.
Completely understandable. And just I know this is live, so occasionally you're going to see Ripley, I think, just made an appearance across the screen. So you saw her tail. So yes, the cat is real. I told you guys.
That's funny. I did get
Joe, you had
a puppy, so he's right now hanging out on the other side of the gate over there. Otherwise, he'll come in and start trying to chew cords and start barking. So
I wasn't paying attention, Lorianne, so I didn't see it actually. So.
I didn't know either.
Yeah, Joe, jump in.
Yeah, so I did a little quick math. You said you were 25 when you won in 2008, and so if you carry 2 and so on, you're in your early 40s now, right?
I am.
And 40. 40 changes a man in many respects, right? It does, Jim. So maybe not you, Jim, but the rest of us, it does.
When I get there, I'll let you know.
And particularly when you have kids, when you're in a later point in life, right? You didn't have, so it had been 33, right? About when your son was born. So what I remember about that, because that's about when I had my first child, is that it kind of changed my perspective with money. And getting older also changed my perspective with money, because that being able to just have this entire opening to make money starts to close to some degree, and you realize that you may not be able to kind of carry this through. How has that changed your approach to poker, given that you're now pursuing a dream that for most people starts when you're in your 20s?
Yeah, it's, money has a little bit of a different value than it did back then. Again, when I was in my 20s, I had a backer. And so I thought, this will always be here and I can just buy whatever I want. Like I said, I spent a lot of my money on dumb shit. Nowadays, I don't spend my money on dumb shit. The dumbest shit I buy is, a couple of 6-foot iPad cables, for my son, because he needs to charge his iPad or something. So I try my best not to overextend myself these days. And there's always that thing in the back of my mind, where he has to eat, he needs clothes, there's times, he needs a roof over his head. In fact, I bought the house that I bought just so he could go to the school that he goes to now, which is a 10 out of 10, school in the area. I'm a little bit overpaid. So there is some of that, spending a little bit of extra money that I might not want to spend, but I thought it was for a good reason. And again, I get to walk him to school. We walked to school this morning. It's about a quarter mile away. And So there's a lot of the spending. I think about him first in a way. Same with poker. Like I would blend my life roll and bankroll all the time. Whereas now I really try not to touch the what life money I have. And I try to just stick to that, the cash I have in the safe, if you will, when it comes to spending money on poker.
Do you ever find yourself struggling more than you did when you were younger in terms of spots that you hit where, oh, wait a minute, if I put this in, I could lose, $5,000 or $1,000. I don't know what stakes you're playing. And that's going to have an impact, or I could have used that money for this thing that he could benefit from.
I try not to think about it like that because, again, I try not to blend those two together as best I can. But like just the other day, I mean, I was talking with Rob and a couple of folks that, from the CTD world, from Chase the Dream about, taking a hiatus for a little while just to get some financial stuff straight. I mean, I have a couple of grand that I could play with, but at the same time, there's that in the back of my mind that, in 4 or 5 cash sessions, that could literally be gone. And we all know that can happen. You can run bad for 4 or 5 sessions. It definitely can happen. So that is in the back of my mind. And I started taking a pause and I thought, okay, how can I get myself in a better financial situation to where I'm not thinking along those lines and I really can have a solid bankroll with a life roll and not have to worry about blending the two or, think about a $500 or a $1,500 loss. I want to get back to that point where that won't matter as much. Whereas right now it does matter. And I have to think about that in the back of my head for sure.
So one other quick question just about, the journey as you gotten older. My understanding is from your, not Instagram, the LinkedIn page is that you're a recruiter for a corporation. How do they look at your being a poker player and having a podcast about it? And how do you balance those out when somebody says, hey, you recruited me, but I also saw you in the poker video the other day?
Yeah, actually, most people find it very interesting. The owner of the company I work for loves it. And one day, in fact, I was at the office. I go in the office every Tuesdays. And the other day he was just mentioning something about it. And he goes, by the way, I love the poker thing. And then he just walks away. I've kind of been lucky in that regard. When I first started my recruiting career, everybody kind of looked me up and then, because I happened to just mention that I like to play poker. And so people just Googled me and they were like, is this you? And they'd show, I have this old baby face picture with my regular glasses on. So I don't wear glasses anymore, but it almost doesn't look like me because it's me in my 20s. And, but people always found it very interesting. And they were, the leadership that I had, my management, whether it be at the companies I was at before or even the company I'm at now, we're pretty flexible with me going to play as long as, again, I took my PTO. But I was always a heavy producer for these companies. I mean, I was the #1 recruiter for a company called Oxford Healthcare IT. I was the only recruiter for the most part for HDM, which is where I met my friend Brian, who I stay with when I go to Vegas. And so he plays a lot of poker. He's from Omaha. His nickname's Omaha Brian. So he loves poker too. In fact, he ended up going pro recently, and that's pretty much all he does now. So I've just kind of been blessed that I've had leadership and ownership of these companies that were not only okay with me playing poker, but they liked it. So far this one's been good, but we'll see when we get to the World Series whether or not my current leadership thinks it's a good idea if I go to the World Series for a month and a half and work remotely while I'm there. We'll find out.
Well, good luck with that.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'll need it.
Lorianne.
As long as you're producing, they let you do what you want. So, for the most part.
Pretty sweet. I like it.
Yeah, it's a good setup.
Thanks, Jim. You know what, Brett? I was originally going to ask you if you would teach your son poker when he was old enough, but I'm going to kind of tweak the question a little bit, knowing more about your background and the way you said when you were younger, you had the big score and you weren't exactly money savvy or good with your bankroll. So knowing all that now, that it's kind of a 2-part question. Would you still teach your son when he was old enough to play poker, and to be proud? Would you be proud if he decided to follow in your footsteps? And if you do decide to teach him poker and you want to learn, would that include proper bankroll management, or how would you incorporate all of that into it? Because let's be honest, when we're all younger, we're not as money savvy. We'd like to think of it, like you said, that we're older and wiser now.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that would be my question.
Short answer, yes and yes.
Yes and yes?
He's already kind of gotten a little, not a lot of interest, but a little bit. There's been times where he's going to sleep and he's like, Daddy, put on poker so I can go to sleep, So he sees me watch it. He sees me play sometimes, and very rare. I mean, I tried, again, when I'm with him, I try to just focus on him like horse blinders almost. But he knows I'm interested in it. I give him poker analogies to life, because as we all know, there's a direct correlation between life and poker. And so I try to teach him just like math stuff. He's very good at math. And so I try to teach him, not necessarily probabilities, but I kind of lean towards that side of things a little bit when I'm teaching him some things. But certainly when he gets to the age where he really wants to take it seriously and learn, absolutely want to teach him and teach him not only the right way to play and how to, play exploitatively and things of that nature, but also proper bankroll management. I always give him my life lessons too. And I teach him just when I was his age and in school. And like just the other day, for example, he was talking about how he doesn't like school. And I said, school is like really easy. I was like, do you ever see daddy? Do you ever see me hang out with my friends ever? And he's like, no, I don't. And I said, yeah, but don't you get to see your friends every day? He's like, yeah, I do. And I said, that's amazing. I was like, once you're out of school, that doesn't happen anymore. Once everybody gets married and has kids, I was like, so enjoy it while you can. You're supposed to be learning. And so I try to give him my own experiences of my life and try to teach him with those experiences. And so I know that when it comes to the bankroll conversation, where I'm definitely going to tell him how I spent my money on dumb shit and how I regret it. And I wish I could have at least a tenth of that money back right now. Things would be a lot different. In fact, I think if I just would have went on my own and, taken that and made a bankroll out of it, and not, again, just stay with my roommate in San Antonio. We had a very small house. I was paying like $700 a month in rent. Had I just done that, I probably would be in a different position right now. So I absolutely will share those stories with him and in hopes that he doesn't make my mistake. In the end, he's going to have to learn on his own, right? So failure is the best teacher after all. So, but hopefully he learns from my mistakes. Absolutely.
That's good. I agree. Just a quick off topic. And it reminded me, and the reason I appreciated it so much is because after my thing with the WPT and the score, I kid you not, people were surprised to see Rick and I the next day playing Resorts World, the 160 nightly. And I told them, honestly, I wasn't changing a thing. I didn't win the 4 million. It wasn't life-changing money. But to be honest, and I even told them, but if I had been in my 20s when I did that, I can't guarantee I would have had, done the same thing. I probably would have started swinging for the fences right away. So I can definitely appreciate where you're coming from that. Like I said, I like to take into account we're older and wiser. Would I have done the same thing in my 20s? As I've already said, probably not. And lastly, what advice would you give to other single parents in poker?
That's a good question. What advice would I give? Don't spend your time playing poker. When you have your kids, focus on your kids. Poker is always going to be there. It's always going to be another tournament. It's always going to be another cash game. So when you're with your children, spend time with your children, balance that out. It's just like any other work-life balance, right? You have to, spend the time with your family when you have that time, because ultimately that's what's not replaceable. Poker's replaceable. Jobs are replaceable. People are not replaceable. Your family's not replaceable. So spend the time with your children while you can.
That's a great question. So I always want to remind our YouTube chatters that we're going to be taking questions. If you want to ask any more questions, make sure to get those into the YouTube chat. I've never looked better. This is I like the headband, I think, is the big difference maker there.
Have you actually done the workout yet?
No, I haven't done it. I just got back. I can't wait to pop this baby into my ready to go VHS. And I'm going to get my leg warmers out and really go to town. I can't wait. It's going to be a whole new me.
Do you still have a VCR?
Of course. Canada only got VCRs like 6 months ago, so we're a little behind the times. But now I finally got something to play it in, so I'm very excited about that. YouTube chatters, get some questions in. We have time for a few more questions with Brett. And also, if you want to enter our raffle, just type the words "food bank" into the YouTube chat. That's all you have to do. That gets you a ticket to win a fantastic prize. Also, if you're able to support a local food bank, we share a portion of all the donations that we receive through YouTube with a local food bank as well. So if you're able to donate via super chat or a super sticky or a super comment or whatever it is, we're going to share some of that with the local food bank. And if you want to support what we're doing, you can also go to rec.poker/support and find all sorts of ways to help us out without spending a dime, or a few ways that you can spend some dimes too. We appreciate all of that as well. So thank you so much for that. We've got one question from our YouTube chatter here. This is from Benny the Jet. And Benny, I want to say thank you, by the way, for your contribution last week. We did have a couple drinks. The RECing Crew members did have a couple drinks at the weekend. And I also want to shout out Chad McVean, who also offered, he basically donated $100. How great is Chad McVean? Sent me $100 to spend on drinks for the RECing Crew members at RecPoker Weekend at Running Aces this weekend. So thanks to Benny and Chad for your contributions. They were well used. I promise you that. Benny's question is, Brett, how were you actually introduced to poker in the first place?
That's a good question. I'll save the long story part of it, but I was adopted into a family where my father was a gambler. My grandfather was actually shot and killed at a poker table when my dad was 13. Oh yeah, so he used to peddle whiskey from Texas to Oklahoma when Oklahoma was in Prohibition. So he used to travel around Texas and Oklahoma playing cards. I have always wondered if he played with like Doyle and Amarillo Slim and stuff, but obviously he wasn't alive when I was alive, so I've never had a chance to ask, obviously, but. Yeah, that's kind of like where I was adopted into this family. So that's kind of my first start of the journey into poker, but I really didn't play much. I mean, when you're a kid, you play a little bit, right? But after I graduated college and I moved back to Texas, I lived with my cousin and some of his friends, and they all played football and baseball together, big sports, heads, and very competitive. And so at the time, Moneymaker, with the whole card cam, everything started, being very popular when it comes to poker. And we were going out, basically binge drinking every Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And we thought, this is really expensive. We were just fresh out of college. So it's not like we were rich or anything. We thought, well, how can we like tone this down to where we're not spending a lot of money on a Thursday night? And that was the same night that ESPN would air, the World Series of Poker. And so we said, why don't we just have a home game and we play and just have some fun? It's like $20, no big deal. And then we'll go out Fridays and Saturdays and do our drinking. So that's what we did. And, I didn't know what beat what. I didn't know, we really didn't. We had to look it up on the actual dial-up internet before, for you kids listening, before you had instant internet like that. We had to wait about 30 minutes just to print off a piece of paper about the hand rankings, and we would have them, in these games. There's like 5-6 of us. We just play, have fun. But then there were a couple of guys there that started winning all the time. And they were talking about these books they were reading, and then we're all just so competitive that I was like, well, if they're going to read books and get better, I'm going to read books and get better, And so then started getting better. Then it got to a point where I read a guy's hand twice in a row, the exact same hand. Both times he had ace jack, and it was his betting pattern that he was doing, And the first time he did it, I just saw the hand. I didn't say anything. The second time I didn't see his hand. And right before he folded, I said, do you have ace jack again? And he turned it over and he looked at me. He's like, how do you know? And I was like, I don't know. I just know, and then people stopped coming because I just kept winning. And so it got to a point where home game wasn't happening anymore. And I started just going out playing. And the first time I ever went to a tournament that was like not at our house or at a friend's house was the World Series of Poker circuit event at Caesars that they used to have a long, long time ago. Didn't do well, but then I was like, all right, let's go to this next one. And I went to New Orleans and I finished third in one of those events. And then I just kind of never looked back. Then I went to Borgata, finished second in one of their preliminary events before their main event, and then had that deep run in the main event, and then another deep run for that bracelet, and the rest is history.
Amazing, such a cool way onto the scene. You've had a lot of success. I think by every objective metric, you've had a successful poker career.
Yeah,
what dream are you trying to accomplish? Venom in the YouTube chat here asks if a bracelet is still as attractive now as it was back then. But like, what kind of legacy do you want to have in the poker world? And like, what do you dream of still accomplishing?
Ultimate dream, definitely bracelet. It's still, as much of a dream as it was the first time I ever stepped into the Rio at the World Series. I mean, it's, for the old school people, it wasn't always at Paris. And it wasn't always the Rio either, I suppose. But yeah, I've always wanted to win a bracelet. But more than anything, I've actually never won a live tournament. I've won online stuff, things like that. But I've always been the bridesmaid, never the bride. Like it's always seconds, thirds, fourths. So I'm dying to win like a live major event. That ultimately is really something I want to do. But to me, it's all a little bit of a means to an end, because what I want to do with the money is start some businesses. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I went to school to be an entrepreneur. That's what I did in college. So that's ultimately what I want to do. And then also play poker while I'm, running a business. But that's where I see just the ultimate big picture dream is running a business and playing poker just kind of whenever I want and having the freedom to spend with my son.
That's beautiful. So let's get into some of you've played in a variety of buy-in levels. You've played in a lot of tournaments over the years. You put in a lot of volume. What are some of the mistakes? We cater to a recreational audience here. What are some of the mistakes that you see less experienced players make? Or what are some of the actions that players make at the table that you then think, this is a less experienced player, and I'm going to exploit them now?
First, I'd say limping a lot. So for, again, less experienced players, just calling pre-flop, not raising, even over calling when people are calling before with big hands like ace king or something like that you want to kind of be raising with. I'd say when I see stuff like that, I immediately think they probably are an unstudied player. Overvaluing top pairs, especially weak top pairs, especially on boards that are very scary, and just kind of going nuts with them. Here in Texas, you see that a lot. So I don't know how many of you have played in Texas poker, but yeah, people don't fold top pairs. So just so you're aware, you have to really just heavily value bet in these games. But that's another thing I see. And then, just, I guess when it comes to tournament stuff, like unless you're really learning from a training site or from like RecPoker community or something, doing things like where they're not check raising or being aggressive in spots they should be aggressive. So it's just things like that I see, and I don't really put them in a specific category. I just say, okay, they're an unstudied player, meaning they probably just like to have fun. They're a fun player, something like that. But yeah, that's a few of the things that I see.
Yeah, those are good ones. You talked earlier about, in your final table run, not knowing much about ICM, but like knowing that you could apply pressure. This is something that a lot of professional players bring up on the show, and recreational players ask me, like, isn't applying pressure just a way to bust earlier? Like I guess I'm asking you, Brett, how do you apply pressure without making yourself vulnerable to busting? Or are you just going to bust more frequently, but it's worth it because of the value that you get from building up a stack?
Yeah, you're just going to bust sometimes,
Right?
First of all, you're going to bust like 99% of your tournaments anyways, right? You're only going to win 1 out of 100. So you're not going to finish first all the time. So I think a lot of people are just scared to bust. And so then they don't take that aggressive route. They don't take those opportunities, when in reality, if they did, they wouldn't be in a position later on when they bust. A lot of people think this is my bust out hand, but they don't really realize, well, had I been aggressive in these other situations, maybe I wouldn't have had a short stack and I wouldn't have busted in this flip. I would have lost the flip. Maybe I would have lost 25% of my chips instead of my whole stack. So they had that mindset that they're just so scared to bust. That they don't take those aggressive routes. But sometimes, when we redline and we're going to just bust out. You're going to get caught. I've been caught bluffing plenty of times where I put people to the test for their entire stack. It happens. I've walked away from tables just shaking my head like, why did I do that bluff? Why did I act, as if I had the nuts when they did, and it's just like, you just beat yourself up a little bit sometimes. But that's the nature of the game. And if you're not taking those opportunities, then you're never going to build that big stack. And you need to build the big stacks once in a while in order to go deep and then put yourself in a position to win the tournament.
I love that. And is there a more specific range of hands that you might like open raise with instead of folding, or you might, situations that you might be 3-betting but not all in, or that you might be just like applying pressure with smaller sizings? Is there an art to that recreational players are kind of just less intuitively attached to?
Yeah, there's definitely an art. Like before I did poker training, like with, Faraz Jaka, for example, I wasn't 3-betting light. I wasn't, using king jack or king queen in certain spots when it's late versus late, things of that nature. I was not doing that I do now. So there's opportunity everywhere when people just don't really 3-bet in these live games unless they have it, that you can raise a little bit more liberally. You can open up your range sometimes. But for the most part, I stick to most pre-flop ranges like you would see in any chart or, what have you, or GTO chart, if you will. But then expand after that just based on my observations of how people play. I don't know if that answered the question, but
no, I think it does. I want to get a sense of like, what are the factors that you're thinking about, inside the mind of a poker pro?
Yeah, mostly the other, really, like the very first thing I do is just observe. I try not to play a lot of hands until I see, who's overfolding on my left, who's raising too much on my right, or who's being too aggressive on my left. And maybe there's times where I'm just going to check call them down where, in other positions I would bet because I know they're not going to bet themselves. They're just going to check behind or something like that. So it's more, in my opinion, it's more about just observing everybody first. Sometimes that takes 30, 45 minutes, but I don't play hand until then. And then I just start, opening up my game and start playing essentially the player, if that makes sense.
Well, patience is a virtue. And I want to remind you that Darrow Carney, who's a RECing Crew member, was also known for getting second place for years. That was his hair shirt. And, pretty good players, had a lot of success since then. So I think it's right around the corner, the corner.
Thank you. I know it is. It's only a matter of time.
Nice. Lorianne, you had something, I think.
I did, Jim. Thank you. Just a quick question to you, Brett. When you mentioned redlining and walking out with your head down, like, why did I bluff there? But my question to you is very simple. Can you actually call yourself a pro poker player if you've never bluff shoved the river into the nuts? I mean, are
Yeah.
you a pro poker player if you've never done that?
There's some rites of passage, and that's definitely one of them. I feel like it almost feels like that, like going broke sometimes. I mean, there's rites of passage in this game. You just have to go through in order.
I was going to say, I think
agree.
I don't. Is there anyone here who hasn't bluff shoved the river into the nuts?
That's right. If so, you're not bluffing enough.
Exactly.
That's exactly right. You're playing too tight. Yeah, you're not bluffing enough.
That was just my
Agreed.
question that I wanted to know.
That's great.
Factually correct.
We've got a question from VA Venom. You might be familiar with this character.
Oh yeah, he's my brother.
He says, Brett, how do you stay ahead of the learning curve in the game? How do you keep up with the adjustments that are continue to be made as the game evolves? How do you study? How do you improve as a player?
So I'm very fortunate being, Froz's editor. I get free training essentially, with him, and I get to pick his brain once in a while. But not only do I edit the videos, but I have to watch them just to make sure all the cuts are right. Like there's sometimes like it's even hard because lately what we've been doing is breaking out videos, like 2-hour videos into small 30-minute segments. And so every once in a while I'll accidentally leave a question from segment 1 into segment 2. And so I have to go fix that. But for the most part, I'm watching the whole thing just to make sure that I didn't make those mistakes. So while I'm watching, I'm also learning at the same time. So I effectively get free training there. And that is easily is 2 hours worth of study every single week without even actually trying to study. So I'd say that I attribute a lot of my study to that. Plus the community, there's, Venom and I talk all the time about hands, Craig, Mikha, Day, Sean, Rob, like the whole Chase the Dream crew. We have a good 200 texts per a half hour in our text thread that we have. They're not all about hands and things, but oftentimes we talk about what hands we played or certain situations and things like that. So even when I'm not, studying by editing, I'm also studying by talking hands with players. And I think that is one of the most effective ways anybody can study. If you're never part of any training site, but you have a good group and community that you can talk hands with, the value there is just tremendous.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think being engaged with other people, actively studying things, putting your questions into words and actually typing in forums, having dialogue with other players, I think is super important. I just want to mention to our, to our audience, if you're a podcast enjoyer, head over to our Patreon page for $10 a month. You can get a podcast version of almost all of our training videos here at RecPoker. It's less than half the price of being a premium member. And then you can just listen along to training stuff with Chris Jones, Rob Washam, Joe Coolis, Kim Kilroy, Eric Jin, all the other fantastic members here at RecPoker. It helps us out a lot to get that $10 a month. And then you can passively study while you're driving the car and doing the dishes and that kind of thing. And then the next step is really joining a group, whatever it is, like the free community like RecPoker, one of our fantastic training sites, partners, stuff like that. It really does make a big difference to be sharing your ideas with other people and having them challenge your assumptions and that kind of stuff. So it helps. Be active, be participatory. Those are the ways to retain this knowledge better. Please, Brett. Yeah.
I do want to tell people too that are just learning. There's no such thing as a stupid question, especially when you're learning. Don't be afraid to ask the question because you're afraid of looking bad. That's how you learn. So you learn by asking questions and by learning. And so don't be afraid if you're in the right community. Don't be afraid to ask questions, even if you think it's a stupid question. I firmly believe there's no such thing.
Yeah, me too.
I was going to say, stupid questions are usually questions that other people have in their head. They just don't want to ask because they're scared.
Absolutely.
So 100%. Always ask.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And we pride ourselves on being a very welcoming and inclusive community here at RecPoker. And, not every community is like that. I know 2+2, got kind of angry and toxic after a while. And Twitter is a fucking hellscape. God, don't go on Twitter. You don't have to use it. Woof. But find a group that's welcoming and isn't going to give you a hard time and isn't going to berate, people that are asking questions that are important to be asked. And I think anyway, enough about that. But it helps a lot. And don't be afraid to share your vulnerabilities with other people when it comes to poker. That's how we learn. If we never shared the things we're not sure about, then we would never have a chance to improve. So I hope that we do. So other than actively studying, joining a community, what do you think it takes to be successful in poker in 2025?
bankroll and volume.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately you got to play. Like that's what it boils down to. If you're not putting in the volume, you're just kind of taking shots and hoping to get lucky. So I think that's probably the two biggest factors. At least it's been for me, and things that I'm focused on are building a bankroll this year, getting myself in a position where, I can play at my most optimal.
Yeah, people don't want to hear it, but I always say the two most important skills for a poker player are bankroll management and game selection. And like strategy is important, but if you don't have those two, like it almost doesn't matter. And when I talk about it at the table, I can see people falling asleep and like thinking about other things, but like it's so important. They're the unsexy skills that matter so much. I love that. That's so cool.
Rob's been beating the bankroll in my head, bankroll management.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah.
We did get a question from MJ, who I believe is a new viewer to the show, was asking like, what's the craziest thing you've seen at a poker table over the years? I'll leave that interpretation up to you, whether it's like a crazy lunatic or a crazy play or something like that. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of like, wow, I can't believe I saw that happen at the poker table?
Well, I mean, I've seen fights. I've seen all kinds of stuff. I'll tell you the one thing for some reason that pops in my head that I remember from the World Series many years ago, where I was just like, where am I? And it was when the main event was just really big and people were doing all these extravagant things to get on TV, So we're sitting there and they're doing the shuffle up and deal. And then as soon as they did that, the guy on my left brought these huge cymbals, these gigantic, stands up on his chair and he goes, boom. I mean, right in my ear. I just remember I was like, what is happening right now? Why did this guy bring this stuff? I don't know if it's crazy, but yeah, that was pretty interesting that happened there. I mean, I played with a lot of celebrities. That's been fun. I've met a lot of interesting people over the years. But yeah, I can't really think of anything specific that was like crazy. I mean, nothing like where somebody, put their Rolex on the table and was like, I'm all in or anything. I haven't seen anything just wild like that I can think of.
How did he get
stuff like that?
How did he get the cymbals to the table? I mean, cymbals are big.
No, I mean, they were huge. They were a good probably 13, 14 inches. I mean, they were gigantic. I don't know. He had them under the table between his legs, I guess, because all of a sudden he's standing on the chair, and the whole room looks, of course. I'm sure he got on TV too. As a result.
That guy's not using his talents correctly. He could play shoplift or whatever he wants. I mean, come on.
That was pretty interesting, but yeah,
that's awesome. So you mentioned earlier talking about cash play versus tournaments and the reduced variance in cash play. A lot of our listeners are tournament players. In tournaments, they are more exciting. No one's ever 100 times their buy-in at a cash table, let alone 1,000 times or something like that. And I think there's something very attractive about like the dramatic arc of a tournament, the excitement of the different stages, building a stack, getting to the bubble, the final table. Like there's a narrative there. There's a story that we like being the hero in. But if you want to make money, come on, you got to play cash, right? Like it's so much easier to not go broke playing cash, to make incremental wins and not, but the swings. Oh, we love the swings. Brett, what's your what you talk about that a little? Talk about that a little.
I think like cash is the best if to build a bankroll. Like if you want to be steady Eddie, you want to pay the bills, playing poker, for example, cash is where it's at. Like I don't know a lot of people that pay their bills doing tournaments unless they're just nosebleed stakes, Triton people with 46 player events, things like that. Because a lot of the times when people have, say, a 10K bankroll, for example, they're playing $200, $300 tournaments, and there's 1,000 people in those tournaments, for the most part, even local stuff. Like especially here in Dallas, I mean, you'll see 700, 800 players and a $300 buy-in. So the variance is just so much higher in a tournament. To me, it's like if you have money and you have an infinite amount, like say you're a doctor or something and you want to play tournaments, go for it, right? Is that everybody's situation? No, it's not. So if you want to put together a bankroll and you ideally with the end game in mind of playing tournaments, I think cash is the best way to build that. And again, if you're going to go pro, it's cash games are really your bread and butter, and where you, in my opinion, you're going to pay your bills month in and month out.
Fantastic. I love that. We've got one more question from the YouTube chat, and then we'll let Lorianne close out the questions here for the interview. This question comes from Philip Razor. He wants to know, have you ever played with anyone who has their own exercise video?
No, I haven't. That's a new one.
No.
Looking forward to it one day.
Yeah, I hope so.
I have seen
Lorianne,
people dressed like that, though. I have seen people with the bands and the 80s gear and all that. I have seen that, but yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, Lorianne, you had a question about this summer, I think.
I do, but I don't know how I follow that, but I'm going to try. Come on, Jim. No.
Good luck, Ellen.
Right. Hey, quick question. Since you said you pretty much played the WSOP every summer, is it safe to assume you're coming this summer? And if so, do your plans include a full WSOP schedule? And will you be playing other series events as well?
Yes. So I do plan to come. Like, it's something. The only time I've ever missed it was like, I think the second year of my marriage, I want to say, was something like that. It was the only year I've ever missed. So I definitely want to go back, as I do every year. Usually I stay with my friend Brian, who lives there, but now I have a dog and I'm gonna be bringing him. So I don't think I can be in my friend's nice house with this puppy, so that choose everything. So I'll have to figure out living situation. We have been talking with some folks from Chase the Dream about what we're going to do for the summer for a living situation. But I really can't get out there for the Mystery Millions. I'm never there for that event, because the way I have my son is structured is I have a Memorial Day weekend, and then that's technically the 5th weekend of May, usually anyways, how it falls. And so then the first weekend of June, I have him again, because I have every 1st, 3rd, and 5th weekend with him. So those first 2 weekends of the World Series, I can't go, for obvious reasons, and don't want to go because I want to spend it with him. Then I try to come out roughly mid-June, and I try to stay out there for a good month, all the way through the main event, if I can play that if possible.
Besides the main event, is there any one particular event that you consider like a can't miss, so that you have to play at the WSOP?
Yeah, Monster Stack and the Millionaire Maker are the two that I've always had really good deep runs in and success in. And then, I like some of these like Colossus, Gladiators. Like, I tend to, make day 2s or 3s in those with big stacks. I've run deep in a couple of those as well. So those are also ones I like to be in. But what I'd like to do, if I can put together the proper bankroll this summer, is do some of those other, side events outside of the World Series. The Golden Nugget has great events. Aria is always running good dailies, things like that I also want to do that don't have, 16,000 entries in and things of that nature.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So try to do as full plate as I can, because when I'm there, I want to play, as much as I can. And I got to work a little too, I'll put in some hours, but also play and maximize that volume while I'm there.
So,
Joe,
I have one more quick question, and I'm going to leave it that if you don't want to answer it, it's perfectly okay. But it occurred to me as you were talking, it occurred to me as you were talking, you were a poker player when you went through a divorce with a custody hearing.
Mm-hmm.
It occurred to me, did that cause you a problem when you were going to talk to a judge to say, well, part of my income comes from being a gambler?
Yes and no. In the beginning, when we first did our divorce, it was mediation. So we didn't have to go in front of a court. So that was sort of amicable, I'll say. I did get a little railroaded a little bit, but it was pretty amicable. But when it came time to say, okay, I was paying the max in child support, and at the time, the job that I had, they cut my pay in half about 2 months after I got divorced. So unfortunately, they didn't tell me that they were going to do this. Otherwise, I definitely would have negotiated for a little bit, different number. But they based it on what I made the year before. Year before, I did very, very well. So I had to pay the maximum. So then eventually, I filed to do a reduction. And then that did come up that I do play poker, and they were, trying to say, well, he spends this amount of money every month, and this and that. And then eventually the judge said, I don't care what he does in his free time. If he wants to play poker, he can play poker. He had a $90,000 a year job, and so that's what it's going to be based on, basically. So they ended up just doing what was, I think, right, based on how much money I actually made versus one good year that I had with that company that I no longer even had. So it did come up, but I got lucky, I think, where the judge was just like, it's not that big of a deal.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
But their attorney did try to make that a very big point, I will say, in driving that home about how much money I quote unquote spent on poker. So that was a factor for sure.
Brett, you have a lot of people in the YouTube chat right now making very positive comments about your appearance. I just want you to know, we're sure you're also an excellent poker player, but it seems like you have a lot of modeling options available to you. So just factor that in. We're going to include Brett's contact info on socials in the show notes, ladies and gentlemen. So go feel free to follow the guy and
slide in the DMs.
slide into the DMs. No. So last question. before we're going to get into our stake study stack and closing the action segments, but you've mentioned your friend Brian in Las Vegas, and this comes up a lot when I talk to traveling pros in particular. You know, a big part of the rake of traveling and playing poker is flights, accommodation, travel expenses, that kind of thing. How important is it to travel cheaply? What are some tips for how to kind of minimize that expense so that you get to keep more of the money that you make when you win?
I am a travel nit as
Yes!
as I can be. I mean,
Me too, buddy.
I will go bare bones if possible. Well, for the summer again, I have a benefit of having friends there. I have 2 different friends that live there, so I do stay with them when I can. So I had that benefit. I drive to the World Series, so I don't have to fly or rent a car. And I love driving. I'm a road trip kind of guy, and I just load up the dog this year, if you will, load up everything and head out to Vegas. So I try to just minimize my expenses as much as possible. First thing I do when I get there is I go grocery shopping. I go to the Walmart, or whatever down the road. So I'm not eating out all the time and things like that. I think if you can find, like if people are just doing a random trip to, New Orleans to play or something like that, my advice, especially if you're going to be there for a long time, is find one of these like either Airbnbs or like extended stay hotels, something that has a kitchen, and do that grocery shopping, because you're going to save so much money in eating out. You almost can save a good tournament buy-in or 2 just by not eating out every single day, especially in an expensive city like, say, Vegas, New Orleans, LA, wherever you might go for your tournaments.
And do you have any like tips on? Oh, sorry, Joe. Please.
I was going to say, if you say that you should just eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches the whole time, Jim will be your friend for life.
I may have brought a few peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with tournaments. That has definitely happened.
Yes,
I'm a huge fan. You're in good company. Yeah.
That was my follow-up question. Excellent, because peanut butter and jam sandwiches are the nuts. They're cheap. Absolutely. They're easy to make. They're easy to eat at the table.
Protein,
come on,
sugar.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. Thank you, Fred.
I need to know, smooth or crunchy?
Smooth. No, I can't do
Thank you. Okay. Just want to be sure.
Jam or jelly?
Jelly if it's grape, but I do strawberry jam sometimes. So I will mix up.
Me too.
Okay.
Me too.
I've grape jelly.
I've been loyal to strawberry jam for a long time, but Mandy Minx, Poker Princess on Twitter, convinced me to give grape jelly a try, and when I did, I won $60,000 that week. So now I have to go grape jelly all the time now.
There you go. It's the nuts.
Can't argue. And it's only one knife, like, because you're spread. You don't have to dip into the. Anyway, there's a lot of pros. There's a lot of pros and cons. Okay, speaking of peanut butter and jam sandwiches, last chance, folks, to type the words "food bank" into the YouTube chat. I just want to say that we're gonna give away a prize at the end of the show. The reason that we ask you to type the words "food bank" into the YouTube chat are just to raise awareness about the fight against food insecurity. It's a difficult time in the world right now for a lot of people. And if you pull out your smartphone right now, press pause on the podcast. If you're listening at home, just press pause. Google food banks near me, and you'll find some fantastic organizations that can benefit from a few dollars out of your pocket, a few non-perishable food items from your pantry, or some hours volunteering this week. So food banks are a great way to maximize the ROI of your contribution to a local charity. And it's a way to actually just help out some hungry people in your own community. So I really encourage folks to support a local food bank. And if you're a listener and you want to give RecPoker Premium a try, after you've made that donation, email me, Jim@rec.poker, with your proof of donation. I'll happily give you a free month of premium membership here at RecPoker. You're exactly the kind of person we want more of at our fantastic learning community here. So please do. Rob Washam, we give away a prize at the end of the show. It's usually a month of membership at one of our fantastic training partners. What do you have in your bag of tricks for this week?
Well, this week we're giving away a free month at Jaka Coaching. So
wow.
What a coincidence, huh? Yeah. For us, Jaka played in the MSPT main event at Bally's Blackhawk last week, and he shipped it. Mm-hmm. And the MSPT is kind of a series that we're all familiar with, based in Minnesota, because it started as the Minnesota State Poker Tour. Then they moved out of the state a little bit. They started going to Iowa, Wisconsin, other places. So they changed their name to the Mid-Stakes Poker Tour. And there were some Jaka Coaching members making deep runs, including Angela Jordanson, Alex Cruz, and Jerry Patch People Cuniff, who by making day 2 achieved MSPT Hall of Fame status. So check out Jaka Coaching by going to RecPoker and clicking on resources and learning partners.
There you go. Yeah, that's one of the fantastic groups. Listen, these training sites out there, they're not dumb. They know the recreational poker players are the lifeblood of the industry. So they share their training material with all of our premium members. All of our premium members can go and check out Jaka Coaching, Solve for Why, Learn Pro Poker. Oh God, why do I do this live on the air without a list? Red Chip, pokercoaching.com, all these fantastic partners that we have. And it's great. I mean, it's yeah, although the poker world is actually a very generous and wonderful place, and we're glad to be a part of that. So yeah, get those food bank guesses into the YouTube chat, and congratulations to Jerry Cuniff, even if he calls us all patch people and refuses to be affiliated with us publicly in any way. We love you, Jerry, and congratulations on the MSPT Hall of Fame. That's fantastic. Way to go. All right, so let's start in Stake, Study, Stack. This is it. So Brett, I explained to you earlier, this is similar to a game called Kiss, Marry, Kill that you might have played when you were younger. We're going to give you 3 names. You need to choose one to stake in a poker game, cash game or tournament, one to study with to make yourself better as a player, and one that you'd like nothing more than to just stack them and take all their chips at the table. The 3 names I'm giving to you are a Russian professional that you're very familiar with by the name of Vitali Lunkin, a podcast producer that's just doing the best that he freaking can named Rob Gardner, and your friend from Chase the Dream and previous podcast guest here and pilot of the Pocket Queens mentorship program, Mikha Richards. So Vitali Lunkin, Rob Gardner, and Mikha Richards, Stake, Study, Stack with Brett Kimes. Who's it going to be?
Stack Vitali, 100%. I owe him lots of stacks. I want to stack that guy left and right every time I get a chance to. The study and stakes is tough. Man, that's a tough one. Because I would do both with both Rob and Mikha. So that's a very good one. It's a very difficult choice. I would probably say study with Rob because I think he's the best player in our group. And I would say stake Mikha because Mikha's awesome. She's a crusher, and I have no doubt that she's going to be one of the most successful poker players in this industry. And
great answer. I love it. We got a good suggestion from Craig Savage. Maybe for the next time we have you on the show, we're going to give you the same three names and ask who you would actually kiss, marry, and kill. So think about that. That's something you can ponder for the next time we get a chance to talk. All right, well then I know. Good Lord. Let's close the action with our speed round, and then we're going to let Brett get out of here. So just quick answers, fast answers. They have to be true. You can say pass, and Rob is going to be there with the buzzer if you take more than 4 or 5 seconds. So I really want you to jump in there and just give us the first thing that occurs to your mind. Yep, that's it.
Is that it?
All right. Start the clock. Here we go. Closing the action with Brett Kimes. Brett, let's start with an easy one. What is your favorite poker hand?
2 black aces.
Nice. Is poker a gamble or a skill game?
Skill.
What's your biggest poker pet peeve?
Eating at the table.
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Absolutely.
Is Ace King a drawing hand?
Not to me.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No, it's a hot dog.
What's better, cats or dogs?
Dogs, 100%.
Describe your reaction to the Luka trade in less than 5 seconds.
You mean the Cowboys who traded Luka? That's what they seem like to me. They might as well be the Cowboys now. They just ruined another Dallas franchise, the Mavericks. No. A terrible trade. I'm actually a Spurs fan, but I still think it's a terrible move. Go ahead.
What's one thing you are afraid of?
Sharks.
Should vacations be lazy or busy?
Lazy.
Who you pulling for, Philadelphia or Kansas City in the Super Bowl?
Neither.
Yeah, the Meteor? Go Meteor.
Yeah, go Meteor. I'd say Philadelphia. They have to play against the Refs and the Chiefs. So that's going to be tough.
Good point. Great point. What's your favorite brick and mortar poker venue, your favorite card room to go play?
Lately, Copa Club. It's a new one. It's a real nice one around here.
Nice. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Absolutely. That's my favorite.
Nice. Yellow light coming up. Slow down or speed up?
Speed up.
It was the end of the table. The end of the tournament's coming up. Are you pro chop or no chop?
No chop. Team no chop.
What's one thing you can't live without?
My son.
Oh, wow. Great answer. How about an open face sandwich? Is an open face sandwich a sandwich?
Yeah. Open face sandwich. It's in the title.
And what about a taco then? Is a taco a sandwich?
No, taco's taco.
Okay. Who's your poker nemesis?
Vitali. But lately, there's been a guy at Copa Club who always hits 2-pair on me on the river. And I just let him just keep betting into me. And then he'll check the river. And I'm like, I think I'm going to check here. And he says 2-pair. I said, on the river? Yep, on the river. And it just don't know how he does it.
There you go. All right. That's the end of our speed round here. I've got one more question for you, but first I just want to tally up your points here.
That's 100. What are you talking about? What's the tally?
Well, no, it's not out of 100 though. So no, you've got 818 points. That's actually really impressive. Way to go. Over 800. That's kind of like a line for a lot of our membership. Last question for you.
I disagree.
He said, you dock him?
Yeah, no. He lost me. I stopped listening at pineapple on pizza. But you got more points.
How can you go wrong? Sweet and salty.
Pineapple and pizza is so good, especially if you go to Hawaii and never have it. Oh my God, you will just never leave.
My son loves it too. He will not eat any other pizza. He's Hawaiian pizza.
No, and your son. So you redeemed yourself with those two answers.
There we go.
Fair enough.
Well, we're going to introduce a new dynamic voting system next week, so everyone will have a little way. Right now, it's a proprietary algorithm that is absolutely not just me making it up on the fly, a la Clive Anderson from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Last question that we have for you, Brett. What's one thing that the poker world needs to do differently to make the poker world a better place?
More welcoming to new players, more welcoming to women. And overall, just more positive attitudes and less negativity, especially on Twitter. So that's three things, but whatever. Yep.
No, all good. So folks, I want to thank you again, Brett, for coming on the show. This is a really great interview. If people want to catch up with you, follow along on your journey, what's the best way for them to do that? Where's the best way for them to find you, and how can they support what you're doing?
I post mostly on Instagram at the Brett Kimes. That's probably where I do all my stories and anything in real time when I'm doing tournaments, cash games, anything I really post is there. I'd say that's the best way.
All right, fantastic. And of course, tune in to the Chase the Dream podcast on Wednesday nights at 7:30, and you'll be able to follow along. Is there an audio version of that, or is it just video? That information will be made clearer. I should know that already. I'm an audio guy.
Yeah, there's audio too. I think Rob said the other day we finally got on iTunes, if I remember correctly. So
nice. All right, well, check it out.
Yeah.
That'll be great. Okay, Brett, thank you so much. We're going to stay on and talk about some upcoming home game results and some cool stuff like that. But looking forward to meeting you in person one of these days. I can't wait.
Same, definitely. Hope to see you all this summer. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
Take care.
That is the man, Brett Kimes. He goes by Vader. That's one thing we're gonna have to put in the next time we have him on the show. That's a cool handle there as well. All right, we have some good stuff to get into here before we let everyone go. We're going to give away a prize. Chris Jones, why don't you tell our members what's the theme of the month in the RecPoker Premium Training Department for February?
So the deep dive here in February is wrapping up our 3-part series where we were kind of reviewing fundamentals, and this month we're looking at kind of going back through what we were talking about in the past 2 months and looking at some actual hand examples and trying to relate those. And then coming up soon, we'll be kind of shifting our deep dive focus where we're going to be having kind of guests coming along for the ride with us. And the first 3-part series there is going to start with Doug Hull. And we're talking about cleaning up from Red Chip Poker. And we're going to be talking about cleaning up your game. So those are the kind of upcoming in the deep dive land.
Very excited. Yeah, I saw Joe nodding his head. Joe's a fan of Doug's, and they've been friends for a long time. So folks don't know, Doug isn't as active today as he used to be, but he's been a long time contributor to the recreational poker world, done a lot of work with Red Chip, and has been a very successful player and coach for a long time. Joe, you have some history with him.
Yeah, he was my first coach. And what I would say about if you just kind of dipping your toes into the poker water, or are considering a poker career and so on, a lot of his articles early on, what attracted me to work with him is he seemed to have an understanding of money and understanding and being very honest about what the poker landscape is like. People know that I hate the term crush when people talk about poker, because it gives this idea that you walk in, you just have aces and you bet and you bluff and you make all this money. Well, you play long enough, you learn that doesn't happen. And I think that Doug's approach to poker in terms of how he teaches it gives you a really good foundation. Plus, he lets you understand where the limits are. So he's really great. I've really enjoyed talking to him over all the years.
Awesome. So you can get more of Doug's work at Red Chip Poker by going to rec.poker/resources and following on our Learning Partners page there. And I think Red Chip has a free 1 week of core that people can get just by signing up. And I do recommend players check that out. And I'm excited for this new series that Chris is doing with our deep dive, where we're going to have a series of coaches and players from other training sites come in and work with our members directly through these presentations and training sessions that Chris is putting together. So very excited for that. It's going to be a great year for Rec Poker and for all of our premium members. John Somsky, it was so great to see you this weekend, man. I love the idea of putting a cold drink in your hand. We should have taken some photos of John getting a beer, because my offer stands, folks. If you're a new listener, if you see John Somsky in the wild and buy him a beer and send me a photo of that happening, I will buy you a beer in person anytime that we meet up. John has the least fun job of anyone here at Rec Poker, and he does such amazing work running our home game club, and he deserves a cold drink every once in a while. So that offer stands. Buy this man a beer, send me evidence, and then you have one beer in your hand with me, compliments of me and Rec Poker. John, again, a real pleasure. Thanks for all you do. What's happening in home game land this week?
Well, I'm going to start by interrupting myself and reminding everyone that Rec Madness is just around the corner, and you can start making your picks for who is going to win Rec Madness by going to bracket.rec.poker, and then make your picks. And whoever gets the closest to a perfect bracket, which no one will, but if anyone gets close, they'll actually get a prize. I don't know what that is. You'll have to ask Taylor Moss for that. And Taylor is doing a great job organizing all of that.
Always look for the dark horse. Nobody bet on the winner last year, making it all the way to the end. Bet on the dark horse.
That's right. Last year's winner.
That is all.
So one Jack Black, Brett got his second nightly victory of the year. Jimmy Boots, Mike Smurden got his first nightly victory for the year. K-Poker Wannabe, Ron Payton got his third nightly victory for the year. 3 in January is pretty impressive.
Amazing.
Jay Sedum, Jeff S. got his second nightly victory for the year. And I actually was at the final table with him at Running Aces.
I got to interrupt because I got to meet Jeff Sedum in person. That was one of these people who's like, oh, God, one of the things I love about these trips so much is you only know these people from like their handles in the home game or their usernames on Discord or in the forums. And I was at the final table with you, John, and this guy to my right. We were having a friendly conversation. I'm like, oh, I'm Jim. What's your name? Like, oh, I'm Jeff. Great. Had a nice conversation with him. I found out later it's Jeff Sedum because I saw his last name in the winner's photo. I was like, that's Jeff Sedum. Oh my God. So that was really cool.
And how come nobody gave him a patch? I saw a picture of him with Taylor.
That's a good point.
And no one gave him a patch. I mean, come on.
That's true. No, that's on me.
By the way, he beat me heads up when he beat on the home game the other day. He won. It was him and me heads up. Of course, he had me 10-1, so I think it was pretty easy for him.
Well, Jeff, congrats on all your success in the home game club, and it was great to put a face to the name. And it was great to use you as an excuse to interrupt John, which is one of my favorite things to do. Okay, thanks, John.
All right, then don't chase. Success. Joseph Armstrong got his second nightly victory for the year. JB Twin Cities got her first nightly victory for the year. Hef Mike, won the daily mixed event for the first time in the year. Bone Crusher 14, Marcel Dusick, got his second international victory for the year. And we only had one international event this week because we didn't have enough players at 8 a.m. when the first tournament started, so it did not run. And then UW River Rat got his or her first LPP event. So he or she can contact info at rec.poker for their free month at Learn Pro Poker.
That's right. The home games are free to enter. They're play money to play, but the prizes are real. And on Sunday, it's not just a pin that's on the line. The winner of our Sunday tournament wins a free month at Learn Pro Poker, sponsored by Ryan LaPlante and the great group over there at Learn Pro Poker. Our first learning partner and one of my favorite people in the poker world. It's great being able to send our members over there and taking advantage of the great training opportunities that they have there. So yeah, get that email in, info@rec.poker, to claim your prize. I also want to mention that we're always looking forward to our next Rec Poker weekend at Running Aces, but they've got some cool stuff coming up as well, including in April an MSPT series of their own coming to what we call Mecca here in the Rec Poker world. So I don't have exactly those dates in front of me right now, but go to runaces.com and check their calendar. You can find out all sorts of information about not only their daily and weekly tournaments that they run, but also some fantastic special events that are coming up, like the MSPT tour in April. So that's going to be fantastic. Rob Gardner, I think you have been keeping track of the folks that have typed the food bank keyword into the YouTube chat. You've got a wheel of prizes. Let's spin it and see who the winner is going to be this week. And this is a special new edition where we, for full transparency, no bamboozling. Oh, MJ, you were so close. It was MJ's first time coming to the show. But Hubie is our winner tonight. MJ, you're going to have to come back next week and join the fun again. Hubie, congratulations. You're no stranger to the winner's circle here at Rec Poker, or anywhere else for that matter. Run good events, the 100K crew, the home game club here. So send that email, please, to info@rec.poker to claim your fantastic prize. What else, gang? Anything we want to mention before we pat this podcast on the butt and roll on out of here? Rob Washam, you unmuted. Is there anything?
I'm just going to say that there was a lot of FOMO experience this weekend from me because all the good stuff was happening up in Minnesota and I couldn't make it.
Yeah, you were missed. You were missed, man. Rob Washam is kind of like the patron saint of Rec Poker Weekend at Running Aces. Not just because he's 200 years old, but
I thought
because
that was St. Oswald.
No, it's because the first one we did was on St. Oswald's Day, and Rob basically won or took second in basically every tournament that we did. So thanks for staying away and letting some of the rest of us win a little something every once in a while. But yeah, you were missed, buddy. You have a great legacy up there, even if you did sell out and move down to where it's warm in Arizona. All right. Well, okay. I want to thank Brett Kimes, our fantastic guests, Chris Jones, John Somsky, Lorianne Persinger, Joseph Koulis, and Rob Washam. We couldn't do it without you RECing Crew members. All the YouTube chatters who are contributing and having a great time and getting the questions in. Everyone at home, I'm sure the music's playing, so I'll just tune this one out. Thanks for joining us on the Rec Poker Podcast, folks. See you next week. That was fun.
So did you hear the music on the way in?
I heard it on the way in, but not on the way out.
Okay.
We couldn't tell any difference with your rhythmic drumming there. It was exactly the same as all the other shows, you know?
Yeah.
It's just I'm not attuned. I'm not attuned. All right. I thought that was really fun. And we're just getting better and better at this, guys. Rob, any feedback?
So when we go live here, the YouTube takes anywhere from 4 to 10 seconds. And I have to click it live, guys, there too.
We're still live.
I think we're still live, Rob.
Yeah.
It's such an annoying